What if you could win a war before your enemy even knew it started? That's what we're talking about today. A military strategy so fast, so completely shocking, its name literally means lightning war. Yep, we're diving into the story of Blitzkrieg.
6 weeks. That's it. In the spring of 1940, that is all the time it took for the German army to do something everyone thought was impossible: conquer France. I mean, think about it. The same fight stalled for 4 bloody years in World War I, and this time it was over in less than 2 months. Just wow. So, the big question, right? How on earth did this happen so fast? This wasn't just another military victory, you know? This was a complete shattering of everything the world thought it knew about war. And the answer? Well, it all comes down to one single, terrifying new strategy.
All right, so let's get right into it. If we want to understand how Western Europe just collapsed, we first have to understand the weapon that brought it down. So what was this thing called Blitzkrieg, really?
Okay, so at its heart, Blitzkrieg is all about shock and awe. The goal? It's not just to beat an army in some big head-on battle. No. The idea is to cause a complete psychological and structural collapse. You move so fast that the other side can't possibly think, let alone react.
And this really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? Look at this contrast. On one side, you've got the slow, grinding, miserable trench warfare of World War I, where you'd fight for months just to gain a few feet of mud. And on the other side, Blitzkrieg. It was the total opposite. Dynamic, brutally fast, and all about one thing: a single, decisive breakthrough.
But here's the thing. It wasn't just about being fast. The real secret sauce, the real power of Blitzkrieg, was coordination. It was like a perfectly rehearsed orchestra. You had the panzers, the tanks, punching a hole in the enemy line. But they weren't alone. Up above, the Luftwaffe, the Air Force, is bombing command posts and creating chaos. Right behind the tanks, you've got motorized infantry just pouring through the gap. And the glue holding this whole deadly operation together? Radio communication. This allowed commanders to adapt on the fly instantly. It really was a symphony of destruction.
And you have to remember, this wasn't really about grabbing land. The real target was the enemy's mind. The whole point was to create this paralyzing sense of chaos, to make soldiers feel totally cut off and make civilians feel like it was all hopeless. See, you weren't just fighting an army, you were fighting their very will to resist.
So this terrifying new theory, it was about to become a very brutal reality. Its first big test run? The fall of 1939, the invasion of Poland. So on September 1st, it happens. The world just watches as Blitzkrieg is unleashed. You've got German planes bombing everything, military positions, cities, while tanks just surge across the border. And then, just as the Polish forces are reeling from this, the Soviet Union invades from the east. It's an impossible situation. Poland was caught in a vice, and organized resistance was totally crushed in a matter of weeks.
And this right here really captures the tragedy of it all. It was a clash of 2 different centuries. Poland was literally using cavalry and tactics from a bygone era against state-of-the-art tanks and dive bombers. They were facing something their commanders just couldn't wrap their heads around. How could they? Their defenses just stood no chance against the overwhelming speed of this completely new kind of war.
So Poland was a grim warning shot to the world. But the real shockwave, the one that proved Blitzkrieg could topple a major, modern global power, that was about to hit Western Europe. We're talking about the fall of France. You see, the Allies were still thinking in World War I terms. They expected a repeat, so they put all their faith and their best troops along the Maginot Line, this massive chain of fortresses on the German border. And that dense, hilly Ardennes forest to the north, they figured, nah, no way a modern tank army can get through there. It was considered impassable. Well, they were fatally wrong.
And this move just brilliantly illustrates the whole idea. Instead of banging their heads against the wall on the super-fortified Maginot Line, the German army went for what everyone thought was the weak point. They just punched their panzers straight through the impassable Ardennes. From there, they raced to the English Channel, completely surrounding the best Allied armies that had moved up into Belgium. They were trapped, just completely cut off against the sea.
The result? It was an absolute catastrophe for the Allies. Now, we all know the story of the miraculous evacuation from Dunkirk, but strategically, the situation was hopeless. It was over. By June 1940, France had surrendered. The shockwaves from that, they were felt in every single capital city around the globe. So you see, Blitzkrieg didn't just win a few battles. It fundamentally redefined modern warfare itself, and its impact, its consequences, went way, way beyond the battlefield. There's a quote that just puts it perfectly. The psychological effect was as important as the military victories. And that really gets to the heart of it all, doesn't it? This was a new kind of warfare that targeted the human spirit itself. It was designed to break you mentally before it broke you physically. And all of this had a devastating human cost. The sheer speed of it all created unimaginable fear and panic. You had millions of civilians clogging the roads, desperately trying to flee, which of course just made it even harder for the Allied armies to move. This was the definition of total war, a conflict that didn't just involve soldiers anymore. It affected every single man, woman, and child in its path.
So what's the big takeaway here? I think it's this. Blitzkrieg is this powerful, kind of chilling example of how a single new idea, a new tactic, can completely upend the global balance of power. It proved that how you fight can be way more important than what you fight with. And all this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, right? This toxic cocktail of speed, technology, and psychological shock changed the world back in 1940. So, what's the Blitzkrieg of the 21st century? Is it cyber warfare that can shut down a country's power grid? Is it massive disinformation campaigns fought online? Maybe autonomous drone swarms? What's the next big thing out there that's poised to completely redefine conflict as we know it?